Imagine a highly successful Scottish business operating inside a perfectly isolated sandbox. The temperature is always right, the customer is predictable, and the rules never change. In this controlled environment, a company can spend millions perfecting its internal operations, training staff, upgrading tech, streamlining logistics, and assume that's all it takes to guarantee profits. They think they dictate their own success. But that sandbox doesn't exist. Out in the real world, massive, unpredictable forces are constantly tearing through the market. A business doesn't operate in a vacuum. It operates at the mercy of external factors. To categorize these pressures, we use a framework called PESTEC. That stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and competitive factors. Today, we're going to isolate and test just the first three levers: political, economic, and social. We are going to look at how these three specific levers determine whether a company is allowed to operate, how much its customers have to spend, and what happens when the market moves in a direction the business didn't plan for. Let's pull the political lever. These are the regulations, laws, and policies enacted by local, national, and international governments. A business has zero say in these decisions, but it is legally required to comply with all of them. Take local policies like the smoking ban. Overnight, pubs and restaurants had to physically alter their premises and enforce new rules, or risk losing their licenses and their customers. On a national scale, look at legislation like the national minimum wage. When the government raises the legal minimum a worker can be paid, a company's wage bill spikes immediately. That cuts straight into their profits, regardless of how efficiently the business is running. Then there is competition policy. In the UK, the Competition and Markets Authority enforces strict rules to prevent cartels, where competitors illegally collude to fix prices, and blocks corporate mergers that would create an unfair monopoly. This policy also stops massive organizations, like major supermarket chains, from using their immense market power to dictate unfairly low prices to their suppliers, like dairy farmers. And then there are macro-political shifts. The Brexit vote introduced new trade barriers and regulatory requirements for UK firms trading with the EU single market, changing the logistics and costs of importing materials and accessing millions of international customers. Political factors are non-negotiable. An organization must adapt its operations and absorb the resulting costs. Failing to comply leads to massive fines, jailed executives, or forced closure. Now let's pull the economic lever. Economic policy is how a government controls the wealth and performance of the nation. It sets tax rates, dictates government spending, and manages borrowing costs. In the UK, the Bank of England is responsible for setting the national interest rate. This is simply the price a person pays to borrow money, or the reward they get for saving it in a bank. This chart shows exactly what happens when that interest rate goes up. As borrowing becomes expensive, businesses face severe cash flow problems from higher loan repayments. At the exact same time, consumers decide to save their cash instead of spending it on goods and services, drying up sales revenue.
But if rates drop, the exact opposite occurs. Businesses can borrow cheaply to invest in new technology, and consumers take their higher disposable incomes straight to the checkout. The economy also dictates international trade through exchange rates. The value of one country's currency compared to another fluctuates constantly, and that directly impacts a business's profit margins. You can track this using the SQA mnemonic SPICED. That stands for Strong Pound, Imports Cheap, Exports Dear. When the value of the pound goes up against foreign currency, a UK business saves money when buying materials from abroad. But if the pound falls or depreciates, the cost to import those exact same materials spikes. To maintain their profit margins, the business is forced to pass that cost on by raising prices for its customers. Economic factors act as the ultimate throttle on a business. They dictate whether consumers have the cash to buy products and whether the business can afford the materials to make them. Finally, we hit the social lever. These factors track the shifting demographics, beliefs, and evolving habits of the actual customer base. Consider demographic shifts. The UK has a steadily aging population. For businesses, this statistical reality creates massive new markets built entirely around the grey pound, generating demand for targeted financial products, accessible housing, and specialized leisure holidays. At the same time, socio-cultural lifestyles are changing. With more households having both adults in full-time employment, consumers have less free time. That structural shift caused a surge in demand for convenience services, forcing supermarkets to rapidly deploy online ordering and delivery fleets. Customers are also becoming increasingly health conscious. To capture this spending, companies have had to pivot their product portfolios, prioritizing clear nutritional packaging and developing wearable tech like fitness trackers. And then there are fast-moving tastes and fads. Unpredictable trends like fidget spinners or loom bands can explode into popularity in a matter of weeks, requiring a business to have highly adaptable manufacturing to capitalize before the hype dies. Social factors move at different speeds, from the slow creep of demographics to the sudden rise of a viral trend. If a business fails to stay in sync with these evolving values and habits, its product portfolio can quickly lose relevance. In the real world, these levers are never pulled one at a time. The market is constant, overlapping chaos. On any given Tuesday, a single business might get hit with a sudden local tax hike, navigate the increased production costs of a depreciating pound, and scramble to meet demand from a viral social trend, all simultaneously. Large organizations don't survive by just reacting to these impacts. They survive by constantly scanning the PESTEC horizon. They dedicate resources to forecasting new laws, weathering economic storms, and predicting socio-cultural trends well before they reach the storefront. Having a brilliant internal strategy means nothing if you build it in a vacuum. To succeed in business management, you have to master the uncontrollable external environment.